You are listening to the Savage FINcast, episode 91, Better Dead Than Red.
Chicago. A criminal mastermind called Overlord held our city in his terrifying grip. Ordinary cops were losing the battle against Overlord's super freaks and mutants. Then, a miracle happened. When I found him, he had no memory of his past. I helped him find an identity and a life. Now we have a fighting chance. Now we have the dragon.
This is the Savage FINcast, the show stuck on unemployment. My name is Jim Purcell.
I'm Craig Olson.
I'm Raven Perez.
And we are back in a very unique episode. We have not had a regular review episode since about January, and since then, the world has kind of ground to a halt in some extreme ways. So we thought it was about time to get out there and get another episode made. So we got no new Savage Dragon issues, because as soon as the world locked down, the next issue was about to come out, and now it's not coming out. So we're going to be talking this episode about the one thing we haven't talked about, the Erik Larsen written and drawn issue of Captain America: The End.
Which is about a virus ending the world.
Yeah.
Ironically, right?
Prophetic, that Larsen.
A scratch, a sniff.
So,
who farted?
Before we get into looking at that issue, we should probably get a little bit of news in. I mean, the world's ground to a halt, but we have been away a while, so there's a couple of things on the docket. So what are we doing first?
Have you guys seen Pontypool?
No, what's that?
We're living it. We're just broadcasting at the end of the world as a viral infection mysteriously takes down the population.
Well, I think our first bit of news kind of is really related to the whole COVID outbreak and how it's going to affect comics, which I think all of our listeners kind of understand at this point.
Specifically this comic, right, Jim? Take it away.
What do you mean, this comic?
Savage Dragon.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. So, as of last week, Diamond has ceased delivering comics to comic shops across the country. Printers are no longer operating. Diamond is no longer distributing. And comic shops are being told to shut down as non-essential businesses across the country. So that basically, all that really means is that publishers have no place to publish their comics because the whole system has broken down.
Yep.
So a lot of people have wondered, are comics going to continue coming out digitally? Because you don't need a shop to sell digital comics, but it's become clear that all the major publishers, all the corporate publishers, have decided that they're going to back comic shops and just cease publishing comics for the time being until things start reopening in maybe a couple of months.
Right.
So, like I said at the start of the episode, Savage Dragon number 248 in particular was supposed to come out April 1st, which was the first day that there would be no more comics. So that means that book is going to be sitting in a warehouse for months.
Cruelly enough, we know that the comps are out there.
Oh yeah, there are copies out there.
We've seen Gavin's comps. Erik confirmed he has his comps. Usually when that's the canary in the coal mine, when the comps are out, next week the stores follow. No such luck.
So,
we just missed it.
We just missed the cutoff on that. So we're going to be, next couple of episodes, we're going to be doing more retro reviews. We're going to be doing this issue of Captain America. Next time we'll probably do more Ninja Turtles. We'll find stuff to talk about. I mean, there's still lots of Savage Dragon to talk about for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. There were a couple of articles. I think Larsen was one of the first guys to come out and say he wasn't going to release any books, not even digital, until print. Everyone was back on print, and this is before any of the comic companies took a stand. I know at least Image has said that they're not releasing anything digital or print. I guess you're saying the other guys have said as well?
That's pretty
DC
clear.
Confirmed it.
Yeah.
DC confirmed they're not going to do
DC
anything.
will continue to put out digital copies of trade collections, which are still going out to bookstores through other distribution methods. So as those come out, those will get digital releases, but no single issues. Oh, and digital-only stuff. DC does put out some digital-only comics, so those will continue to come out.
Gotcha.
Well,
I thought it was funny though, because Erik was like he was kind of like one of the first to kind of put a stand on things, and there were different people who picked up his tweets or his Facebook posts, and we had Comic Book Resources came out with an article, and it just said Savage Dragon creator Erik Larsen vows not to release digital before print. But then you have Newsarama, and like their main title was Savage Dragon 251 canceled by Image Comics, and it was like, what?
Dude, it was the most clickbaity
yeah,
shit in
it was
history.
And that was just a solicitation cancellation. That was 251, right?
Yeah, it's such crap.
He'll just be resolicited in the future. So,
yeah.
what are you guys' personal opinion on all of this? Do you think shutting down the entire quote-unquote industry is the way to go here to protect comic shops over creators and publishers?
You want to go first, Craig? Because mine's not short and easy.
Well, I would say this. I would say, I don't know. I feel like they should all stick together, because I feel like digital, yes, it's great, but there's also a good portion of sales that are print. And if the comic shops fail or are hurt pretty bad by this, then that's going to hurt the creators of the comics in some way. Now, if they all stick together and they all deal with the pain, then maybe they all survive out of this. If they don't, then you might see a lot of shops fail. But I don't know. I don't own a shop. I'm not sure. I know that they were talking about some of that Comics Hub app being able to set up a system outside of Diamond where you could buy your comics.
Since they started talking about it.
It was a good idea, but
the comic shop specifically went against it. They don't.
Yeah, they felt like it was going to be like, if this thing lasts months, then it was going to be like a headache to try to get hundreds of books out to.
They're
to
actually
people.
more afraid that people will become acclimatized to digital and won't come back to shops.
Okay, gotcha.
For the listeners who may not have seen the story, which maybe you did, maybe you didn't. However, just to summarize real short, Comics Hub was intending to do digital sales. But
Comics Hub is an app, right? Let's just back up and
Right.
discuss what Comics Hub is.
Correct. It was going to be like an app. It's also an online storefront. So if you're into comicsology or whatever, there you go. But the idea was, the twist was this. It wasn't just that you were going to be buying digital issues. It was that you were going to be buying a print advance copy, and you would get your digital in real time without having to wait, with the promise that when the dust settled,
You'd get
comic
your hard
shop
copy.
would fulfill your physical copy.
Is that what Comics Hub is all about now? Because it looks like it might be.
Well, my comic shop uses Comics Hub, and they use it for their inventory system and everything, and I have an app on my phone where I can track the stuff on my pull list. I can request pulls through the app, and I actually could pay for my comics through the app, and I actually did pay for my comics up until my comics closed. I started to, even though I wasn't getting them, just to help my comic shop out.
Sure.
So I was prepaying for them. So they kind of go ahead.
It's like a middleman sort of thing. I'm reading
I
the website
guess so, yeah.
right now.
They use
they really
it
don't need to exist, but
well, I think it's really good for the shop because it helps them with their ordering and it helps them keep track of. I think it's just a better kind of an inventory tool for the shops,
right?
And it helps the it's like an in between. You're right, but it helps with providing an app for shops that don't want to invest in making their own app.
Yeah, it looks like publishers put their stuff on it, and then stores can use the Comic Hub app to show what their inventory is, and then people can buy the comics through the app.
Yep,
from their local shop.
I don't really use the app that much. I usually do everything through my comic shop, but they have the whole thing on their system. So when they order through Diamond and all their inventory goes through that, and they're able to track everything. So, and I'm also able to see what my last purchases were and, what's coming up. And I don't know, it's pretty cool. Yeah. And if I want to order something, I can order it through the app to come into my comic shop. So it's pretty neat. It makes things cool. Puts everything on my phone. But yeah, they had that good. I thought it was a pretty good idea, but then when you start thinking of the logistics of it all, and if this thing kind of drags on for months, you'd have, maybe 300 comics, or depending, certain people buy a ton of comics, and if, at the end of all this, the first day back, everyone's looking for their comics. These shops have to pull together hundreds and hundreds of print comics to fulfill orders. I could see that being a nightmare. And then the other thing I think is totally valid, what Jim is saying is, I'm sure the shop owners would be afraid that, all right, someone's been on digital for 3 months now. Maybe they didn't want to make the jump before because they like their print comics, but then they started getting used to it for 3 months. And they actually start liking digital better than print. And now they don't need the comic shop anymore.
That is an awful argument, but...
Why is that?
I don't know.
Why is that awful, though?
Because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense based on reality.
Why not? I mean, there's plenty of people that went to MP3s, maybe were buying CDs, didn't make that big jump in investment, kind of, were a collector mentality, and then they're like, you know what? Let me jump more into the digital. I can,
But no one collects CDs, or at least... They shouldn't, because
there's
no.
You should see my collection.
There is no functional difference between a CD with a bunch of songs and an MP3. They are the same.
I am the biggest vinyl collector.
Vinyl's different, though.
It's not. How?
Vinyl is an analog source and is arguably a better high fidelity sound.
Only if you're spending thousands and thousands in equipment.
Right, but that means
I buy vinyl because I like
an audiophile and not. Because otherwise, you might as well just buy MP3s.
No, because there's a collector aspect to it. There's different pressings. There's different colors of vinyl. There's different rarity of the different colors.
So you go
there's
in
different
that deep?
Jackets. Yeah, I do actually.
But still,
there's a lot of things like someone will press a record, right?
But then you're not collecting for the music. Then you're collecting for the physical thing.
It's part of the package.
But
it's totally part of the package.
But the files are the same. They are identical.
Yeah, but it's like comics. I mean, people buy variant comic covers.
That's a whole nother conversation, variant covers. But there's a difference fundamentally.
People buy first pressings.
Between a digital comic and a print comic. They fill two completely different roles for mostly two completely different consumers.
But I feel like that's music too, and that's vinyl. Like there's people that like the package of the liner notes and the pictures and the physical kind of owning something.
And that's fine. Again, though, that's not comics. Not really.
It is for
comics is the content. And I guess
it's more than the content for me.
Different covers, because comics don't come with like special features and inlays and booklets. Not really. Not anymore. Maybe not anymore. Maybe back during the collector's craze when they came in bags when they came with cards.
Does your Ninja Turtles inside cover have the different front covers?
No,
the variant covers.
They don't share those with on the digital covers.
I mean, there's things that print have that I like holding it. I like flipping through my long boxes. I like having the physical copy.
And that's fine.
I think it's a valid accident. A valid argument that
are into that.
But I think a lot are. And I think it's a valid argument that people that switch to digital might stop.
Finish. Craig, yes, there is an appeal to that, and I like going through long boxes too. I like finding stuff. I'm a treasure seeker, but I'm not looking for variants. I'm looking for stories I've never heard of and artists I know of or have never heard of, and looking for interesting new things. But when I sit down and I want to read a comic, I don't want to go through all the trouble of opening the bag, pulling the comic out, making sure I don't bend it or crease it, flipping it open, not dropping it in the toilet while I'm taking a shit.
Right, but you don't think that people that have been collecting long-time print might decide when they collect digital that they like your way of thinking and
Absolutely
might be like,
not.
you know what?
If you're in to print, you're not going to change in 3 months. You are going to hate the next 3 months reading on a system that you're unfamiliar with, uncomfortable with, and generally don't like. Because so but
you got to start somewhere. And so if everyone that's got into digital started digital at some point and decided they were going to make that switch and maybe sell off their old comics, get rid of all the storage, and just go to digital. So you don't think that facilitates it?
I think if you were going to do that, you would have done it already. It's 2020. We've had digital comics for almost 12 years.
I don't know. I mean, I guess
but my personal feeling about all of this is that having 3 months with no comics, or at least no see, the thing about the comic book thing about reading comics for me, it's the consistency. It's the every Wednesday there are new comics. Every Wednesday. And if you lose that rhythm of going to get your new comics, people are going to start thinking, I don't really need comics, maybe. I mean, this is fine. I get on, I watch TV and play video games. And so when everything comes back, you're going to lose like 30% of your readership who just forget to come back.
But again, I feel like that's almost the same argument of, well, I don't really need to go to the comic shop. I can just get this digitally.
But the experience of going to Comixology every Wednesday is just like going to a comic shop every Wednesday. For me, it's a pilgrimage. It's Wednesday. Get on the Comixology. What's out this week? Oh yeah, put them all on my wish list. What can I afford? Buy them up.
Right. So you don't think that someone's going to say, well, there's no need for me to go to the comic store because I can get that same feeling.
Well, I don't know if everyone's like me. I'm weird.
Well, that's my point.
So basically, you guys, though, you're going in two different directions here with this, and the main thing is that like at the one hand, you know, one of you is saying, hey, you know, people might get used to reading digital, and then you know they'll not need the print industry anymore. You know, comic shops will fail. On the other hand, the other person's saying they might not like comics anymore. And then comics are done for, you know, the comic shops are done for, and the creative teams. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, I guess if we're only looking at those 2 points, which I still have a viewpoint I want to spew all over this conversation, but I just want to ask, I don't want to jump away from what you two dudes are talking about here. Which do you think, if you had to frame it in that way, looking at both your points, which do you two think is the most important move there? You know, is it more important to keep the comics flow coming, hoping people will come back to shops, maybe they go digital, but at least they have comics in their life? Or is it more important to preserve the shops by not making anything at the risk that people might just use this as a chance to abandon comics entirely? Go ahead. Take it away.
For me, I would say I would almost use Jim's argument. Jim's argument is people aren't going to leave after 3 months, you know, physical copies. I think people aren't going to leave comics if they're into comics after, you know, 3 or 4 months of no comics. I think maybe they'll go buy back issues digitally, or maybe just do something, eBay or something. I feel like, I don't know. I knowing kind of small business owners and stuff, it's just, I feel like they've got to stick together almost like a union. And I would feel bad if, you know, shops had to close, or, you know, a quarter of the shops had to close. It would really hurt the industry. The only thing I could say is maybe, you know, the distribution model will be looked at more and someone else will step up, or I don't know. I mean, maybe this is helpful in a way, but I don't know. I mean, I could see both ways. I understand Jim's argument. I don't agree completely, but I think either way it sucks. I don't think there's a perfect answer.
It's just all right already. Comic publishers, in particular Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, all the big ones, have already made all of their books returnable if they're not selling or they order too many. So you create a system where you keep putting the books out digitally during the off time, but when we all go back to our lives, the publishers just send all those books to the comic shops, but make them all returnable. And then the comic shops aren't out for anything. And all the print buyers, people who buy print, are going to keep buying print. Maybe they'll read digital for a few months while they have to, but they're going to go buy their print books when it's over. So if you make all the books returnable, the comic shops don't lose any money for having more comics they can't sell, and you get to have comics through the whole pandemic period, the quarantine period, and everyone gets their print books at the end. Easy. That's my argument.
And I think that's what Comic Hub was trying to do.
Comic Hub was trying to sell a digital code and a print code for the same price so that people could have both. But from what you described, it sounded like shop owners didn't want to have to figure out who's owed what after the fact.
Yeah, that there'd be too much volume at once or something. I don't know. So, Raven, what's your take?
Long story short, just to be as concise as possible, I think that the shops need to, as you stated, stick together. I do think that shops are a valuable part of comics distribution. I think that print still dominates the comic industry. Digital does not. Digital is important. It is not unimportant. However, the reality of it is that we have a niche entertainment medium here where the audience prefers print. And it's one of those things where it's like digital. Yes, digital's growing, but clearly print is so important that they're willing to just say, well, shit, we won't make anything until, this whole thing blows over. That way we can protect print. Like the shops are distributing print. So print's important. The comic shops are insanely important. I'll tell you what I think is not worth maybe, trying to preserve and protect, though, is goddamn Diamond's monopoly. And a lot of this is coming from this stress, this pressure is coming from the fact that Diamond caved because the logistics, talking about, logistics too hard. Like this whole thing started with Diamond saying, in this current climate, it's too hard to do logistics. It's too hard to work around all these different things. We just need to stop for a while. And then boom, one company fell, and now the whole entertainment medium is like, oh, and it's kind of like, a lot of the times you see people talking, maybe you do, maybe you don't, about like how, quote unquote, when this all ends, we can go back to normal. And then you see other people saying, when this all ends, we don't need to go back to normal. We need to look at like how we got in this, situation to begin with. Comics are no different. And Diamond is really at the root of this. And I also think that, Marvel and DC have the bulk of the market share. And I had a friend, something that just changed my mind on all of this. I had a friend, I'm not going to name him, but he's a independent comic shop owner. Last time I talked to him, it's been years ago, he was real confident. He said, I said, what would you do if Diamond just stopped one day? This is like 2007. I'm saying this to him. So it's been almost 10 years ago. And he goes, I'm not worried about it. He's like, someone else would come up. And, he laughed about it because his store was mostly indie-centric, right? Well, I guess times 10 years have made quite a difference. He, a shop owner, was talking about how Marvel and DC drive his business. And if he doesn't have that influx of new reading material, he can't count on indie to support him. And that he, tries to use indie to position, tries to use Marvel and DC to position indie books or whatever, but he just can't bolster that. All of this, and Gone was his, I was sort of like, yeah, but don't you just think someone else will just come up? I used his own words, and he replied to me that he was like, no, if 30% of the shops go away, he was like, it's going to hurt everyone. He was like, it's going to put everyone in a really tough spot. He said, everybody will see. He was like, if these stores go away, it'll impact everyone. None of this shit was, if it wasn't, this is the stress test and everything failed, right? So what we really need to do, talking about Jim, I don't have the perfect answer. I'm not saying I have the perfect answer, but I do know the problem. We need to have a situation where, when shop owners return back to business, there is a concentrated effort to not have all your eggs in two baskets. You have to make effort to have your readership read other shit. Two companies shouldn't dominate your store. That's not healthy. One distributor shouldn't be the only thing out there. That's not healthy. There should have been alternatives, fail-safes, different things. And I think it's weirder and shittier still. We don't even have to go into this conversation, but it's weirder and shittier still that, you got like Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld, and other artists I've seen, making all kinds of like effort to help and protect and help get money to these shops or whatever. And at the same time, let's not pretend that goddamn Disney and Time Warner couldn't support every single comic shop in North America, their staff, their rent, everything, for 5 months, however long it takes for shit to die down. And they're just not. It's going to fall on grassroots effort, which is fucking ridiculous. When two companies have such a share of this market, it's fucking absurd that they haven't stepped in. It's like, so they made their books returnable. You're going to tell, is the shop owner with the small shop going to tell their landlord, oh, hey, guess what? It's cool. I don't have rent this month, but don't worry, all the books are returnable. It doesn't do fucking shit. So basically, I think that a lot of stuff should change. I think this is more or less, it just proves everything that I always thought about the direct market. That it's not built to last, it's not built to handle bad stuff. And we shouldn't be in a situation where it's, oh no, digital might destroy everything, or oh no, digital might destroy. Things should be in more of a place to where they can coexist. I think music has kind of reached that equilibrium. I think movies have kind of reached that equilibrium. I think video games are kind of struggling. There's a little bit of a battle being fought between digital and physical. You have some weird shit that's not worth going into on a comic podcast. But I'm saying other entertainment mediums have sort of, found that place of balance, and it's time for the goddamn comic industry to, figure it the fuck out. Whatever that means. I'm saying if it means that, hey, you get a digital code free with every print comic you buy. Cool. If it means, hey, when you can't get out to the shop, you can still use your digital code. Just call your shop, pay for the comic. They can give you the fucking code through an app or something like that. Work it the fuck out. It's not like we don't have big companies that have money to deal with this. So that's it. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
Yeah, well, that's basically how vinyl records work too. Is you buy the record, and when you open it up and pull your record out, there's usually a coupon in there for a download code, so that you can have the best of both worlds if you want it.
And I buy Blu-rays all the time, but they all come with digital codes that I also use all the time.
Bingo. There's no need. It's so dumb. There's no need for these two things to fight, because I can tell you, fellas, when you fucking make a comic, it starts its life as a digital file.
I know Marvel provides codes on some of their books.
Yeah.
Or they did for a while.
Quit. Or somebody quit. One of the two companies quit. Like they were doing digital codes and then they quit.
They were having a problem. I believe they were getting stolen because with a comic book, of course, people just flip through them at the store. So if you just take a picture,
they take a picture
of the code, it's gone. So right. It wasn't really possible to protect them. So they would just get stolen all the time, the codes.
These companies should work with retailers to have a program, like a mailing list.
Yeah.
Something easy.
This Captain America one has a code.
Does?
Captain America at the end, yeah.
Did it come sealed, or did it come bagged in any way?
No. It's on one of the ads right in the middle of the book.
It's not like a peel-off thing, or is it just visible?
Nope, it's just visible.
That's interesting. Let me see. Where's my code? Hold on.
Unless it's a peel-off thing. I don't know.
I didn't even notice.
It's on the cable ad in there. Oh, yeah, it is a peel-off thing.
That might protect it, make it...
It's a little sticker that you peel off the ad for the...
Free digital content offer. I didn't even notice.
I guess that makes it a little easier to spot if they're stolen.
Well, yeah, you'd actually have to peel it off. You can't just grab it and take a picture.
Right.
That's cool, though. So there is already...
I should have had you guys give me your code instead of paying $5 for this.
No, Jim, you have to support the comic industry.
Yeah.
You're right.
But I will say, again, this shit needs worked out. Like, it needs worked out. I do think that it is, I'm seeing all sides of the coin here. You know, it's shitty for retailers. They're in a scary, scary place. Like I said, my friend, he is a friend. He's not just a guy who owns a shop. He's a friend. He's scared shitless, dude. He's scared he's going to fucking lose his business. And at the same time, like, you know, I know Jim's right. There are people who, they're only reading because it was routine. And when they quit reading, the routine might not be easy to get back up. You know what I mean? So really, just comics is in a kind of a crummy space, and I think we all need to like work. You know, it's funny, we're going to mention them in our very next news article, but cartoonist Kayfabe with their whole "read more comics" slogan, it's a fucking good slogan, dude.
Mm-hmm.
People should have more diverse tastes. They should read digital. They should read books. They should read, you know, trades. They should read single issues, strips, web comics. Read it all, dude, because it's all comics at the end of the day. And as far as the shit behind the scenes, I mean, goddamn, dude. Like, you telling me Dark Horse, you know, Marvel, DC, there was just, like, nothing? There was never any kind of, like, thought process as to what would happen? I don't know. Clearly not, I guess.
I think putting too much of the blame on Diamond this time around is a little erroneous, just because Diamond is the only distributor, but the fact of the matter is printers aren't printing, so there's no content to distribute. So even if there were two distributors, but if there were two distributors, neither of them would have content to distribute. They'd both be shut down.
They could still get, but here's the problem. This is what you're not realizing is that they could still get trades and books.
Right.
See, comic shops exclusively operate through Diamond, unless they're a bookstore that also sells comics.
I guess that's true. I guess you couldn't get back catalog stuff in warehouses.
The problem
Diamond isn't distributing it all. Good point.
Right. The problem is that if you're a comic shop that only uses Diamond and doesn't have a book wholesaler which probably they don't have the volume to have a book wholesaler.
Right.
But if you are a comic shop that only has Diamond as your only resource, you can't get trades. Yes, there's no new graphic novels, but there's no new trades. There's no new statues. There's no new T-shirts. There's no new toys. There's no new any of that shit. And so that's why it's problematic.
Okay, I see your point.
Because at least if they had other options,
my other feeling is it's still considered unessential, so they still would have been shut down.
They could do curbside service. And
I'm talking about distributors. I'm talking about the distributors. I don't know if Diamond is the only one shut down, but I feel like others are probably shut down as well.
I think distributors can still do shit because I'm still working and we're still getting stuff.
Oh, well, you're essential. Your supply chain has to sort of remain. Comics.
If you're a lot of places, if you're not retail, you can still work from home or other things. I know printers can't, but and distributors probably can't. But I think there's different rules for like retailers and things like, you know, Jim, you work at a casino, but things like that are kind of more public.
I was going to say, I think that there's still people skating stuff around to where, even though it's weird, everything should be closed. But, like, I mean, we're still getting video games. They're still releasing new video games and stuff.
Well, that may be stopping soon. They've been
right.
After Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out, I don't think we're going to see another major release for a while.
Well, I don't think, like, the developers have to stop. I mean, probably most of those guys can work remotely on things. Right.
But I think this is the last game that's in warehouses, is what I'm saying. And I think once they're distributed, I don't think you're going to see another major release until at least like the fall, because they've already delayed the other big releases that were supposed to come out in the next month.
Okay,
just a thought.
So, last words.
My big worry is this is going to damage the entire comic industry, and it's going to impact. It's just my feeling is so many comics come out. That's why I like comics, is that there's a lot of comics. And if the distribution system blows up and companies just make less comics, we'll all be poorer for it. So my feeling is you got to get that revenue stream. And if you're not putting out new content, there's no revenue stream. And that's just going to, the longer it goes on, the more losses are going to mount. and the harder it is, everyone's going to have to come back. I mean, sure, Disney's a billionaire, trillionaire company, and Warner Brothers is worth millions, but
yeah, but they could still drop their comics division and
never notice. I mean,
Right.
Disney has done like video games in house and shuttered the entire division multiple times, not because they were unprofitable, because they weren't profitable enough. So
Right.
Well, that's the other side of the coin that we didn't even talk about. Is what's so funny is how people are actually scared that this is going to be an opportunity for corporate comics to pull up tent pegs.
there is a news article about DC Comics creating a $250,000 fund to help support comic shops over the next few months. That's a start. It ain't the end.
Yeah, that's not like nothing though. Like previously, I thought they were not doing fucking shit. So,
But I also
They don't have to.
I also feel like I'm starting to see a little bit of rumblings on Twitter that maybe creators are not being allowed to continue working on projects during the
that's
shutdown.
known. Several creators have announced that they've been told to stop working on things,
Which
so.
means they're not going to be getting paid because they're all freelancers.
Which is, again, this is fucking short-sighted and stupid. I'm sorry, I'm going to be angry about this shit because it's stupid. That's short-sighted and stupid because what they should do is fucking keep paying these creators. It's not like they can't afford it. They should keep paying these fucking creators to get ahead. Like, what in this goddamn world is wrong with having a buffer? Like, nothing at all. Why does the comic industry have to skate 2 months ahead of the cutoff all the time? Keep your people working. What is hurting? They work at home anyway. There's no harm in having these fucking creators still create. It's what Erik said he was going to do on Savage Dragon.
I'm sure we'll see a boom of indie comics over the next 6 months. After the next 6 months.
It blows my mind. I think all this is being handled shitty. I think there's a better way to handle all of it.
Image Comics will be on time for like a good year next year, and then they'll start to drop back off.
Oh, Lord. Rolling on with the next news.
All right,
article,
what else? What's the next bit of news?
Alrighty. Well, cartoonist Kayfabe, which I'm sure a lot of guys that listen to us probably know who they are, but if you don't know who they are, it's Jim Rugg and Ed Piskor. They do, I don't know, I guess I don't know how many days a week they post something. I feel like it's multiple times a week.
Yeah, they post all the fucking time, dude. It's nuts.
They have a pretty successful comics podcast, and they hit up a lot of indie stuff, but they do a mix, actually. They don't do just indie. They do everything and anything. They're just fans of the art form. They love it. They get in deep. They review issues. They talk to creators. So on March 20th, they did a review of the Savage Dragon mini, which was a great review.
Again.
Yeah. What do you mean again?
Everybody reviews the miniseries first.
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely. But I think they came into it. They brought a lot of discussion about them and how they bought it in the beginning when it came out. So they talked a lot about those early years and what it meant to them. And they had a real kind of fondness for it, which was fun to listen to. And their interpretations of things and what they saw at their age. I guess they were young teenagers or maybe even younger than that. So it was a pretty fun conversation. They went page by page. It's up on there. If you look up Cartoon Kayfabe, Cartoonist Kayfabe.
Right.
Kayfabe's Kayfabe. They're on YouTube. So they did that, which I thought was cool. And then a couple days later, on March 22nd, they posted an interview with Erik, which was also really cool. And they got into a lot of cool stuff. I guess both of them had sent in submissions for the have your character star in Savage Dragon, the Jimbo one. And so they talked about that, and that was really funny. It was better than what you typically hear for Larsen interviews. There wasn't a lot of the same old kind of BS. There was a little bit of background stuff, which you've heard in other ones, but these guys, they're good at what they do. So they asked really good questions that you probably haven't heard before, which makes it a good listen. I really enjoyed it. I recommend it.
It needs said that they are cartoonist historians. So as Craig mentioned, they're into the entire fucking art form. Euro shit, manga, fucking capes, tights and fights, like really obscure indie shit. And they are really hardcore, like, history. Like, they're into the meat and bones of it. So, plus they have big personalities. It's especially Ed. So it's really cool. It's definitely worth a listen, faux show.
So like Jim Rugg he's known for his Street Angel comic. I guess Ed Piskor is probably known for like
Hip Hop Family Tree.
He did the X-Men books,
Grand
for
Design.
Marvel, Grand Design, which are great. So those did so well that Marvel had Tom Scioli follow up with Fantastic Four Grand Design, which was cool. Fun stuff. These guys are fun to listen to. Definitely recommend you guys check it out.
Cool.
So we got anything else on the news end of things?
Man, that's it.
That was good. That was a good conversation.
Both a very busy time and a very thin time. It's
scary
it's
time.
certainly times.
It's a weird time, dude.
So shall we get into the meat and potatoes?
The patriotic meat and potatoes.
So
about scary times.
About scary times. People who didn't shelter in place enough.
Yeah, they didn't socially distance.
So when did this come out? This was March, right? March 2020?
March?
Was it March?
Earlier
March, I'm
than
sorry.
that.
I think it was February.
Let me look
that
it up.
feels right.
Came out February 5th.
February 5th?
February 5th.
Yep.
Okay.
I was going to say
It's listed as
early
April
February.
2020 on the inside cover, which I know is never when it comes out, but I didn't realize it was that early.
So, just a quick explanation. The Marvel Comics, the End comics, are typically one-shots or short miniseries that chronicle the theoretical, or at least one person's interpretation of the last of a particular character or group's history. It's why they're called The End. The original, the first one was Hulk the End by Peter David, who told the story about the last days of the Hulk. It's actually one of the few Hulk Peter David books I ever read, and I thought it was pretty good.
Roaches tear apart the Hulk.
They sure do, but the Hulk won't die, because the Hulk is just too goddamn angry.
Too angry to die.
Too angry to die, that Hulk.
Hashtag relatable.
But usually they're pretty focused on the title character. And just I haven't read a lot of them, but of the ones I have read, this issue of Captain America follows a very similar tone, because usually the end isn't very good for our heroes.
Yeah. Apocalyptic scenarios for sure.
Do you guys know, or have any idea how Erik or why Erik was approached for this? It seemed to come kind of out of the blue. I mean, not really out of the blue. It's weird. He had a good year with Marvel. I feel like he had the Spider-Man
sure
one shot.
It just kind of spun out of the 80th anniversary stuff.
He had the Marvel 1000. They did a page in, and then he had the
Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man
going
one
big
shot. He had his art was kind of featured in the Spider-Man movie, the cartoon movie. What's that called?
Into the Spider-Verse.
I'll bet you anything is that when they brought him in to do the Spider-Man and the Marvel 80th stuff, he basically said, "I want to do something of substance because while I'm here." So this is probably what was offered to him or what he pitched.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to him next time we talk to him. See how that came about.
Knowing now what we know, I would have gladly given up all of that for more Savage Dragon.
Really?
No, I'm teasing. I'm just joking. It's kind of funny. Like he low-key gave himself that year to work on those side things, which is actually really good and even important. If you only work on one thing in comics, you might as well just quit because people just forget you. So it's actually really important that he went and he did his Marvel stuff because that put him back on a lot of people's radar. That being said, hey, knowing now that we know it's going to be a few months before we get like more Savage Dragon, I'd have been like, oh, goddamn.
Yeah, right. But, I think I do enjoy seeing him play with other, toys once in a while. I mean, I love Savage Dragon, and we have a lot of issues with Savage Dragon. So whenever there's a chance for him to take a break and, produce a comic with another superhero or something, even if it's his own, I'm still hoping to see an Ant book sometime soon, but I don't know about that. But just to see any, I loved when he jumped on the Defenders for a little bit, or things like that. Even when he's just writing other stuff, it's just always a treat. And I was super stoked to see him do this book, because it's a character he's drawn Captain America and Spider-Man, an Amazing Spider-Man, but he never kind of did a Captain America story before. And I think Captain America is right up his alley.
I think it's funny, the timing. A fan drew apologies, Finhead, that drew this. I'm missing your name. I'm sorry, but a fan drew a Walking Dead parody with Dragon as Rick Grimes. The iconic Walking Dead #1 cover where it's Rick in front of the storefront and it's shattered and you can see zombies in the reflection of the glass. That one. And they had Dragon there as that. And, of course, the conversation naturally was like, oh, wouldn't it be great to see, zombies, Dragon versus zombies? And Eric's like, no, I already did that. And it's kind of cool because it's like, he had zombies show up in one panel of Savage Dragon or whatever. But I guess it's clear that he doesn't really, want to do a Dragon versus zombie story himself. However, what is kind of neat, you talk about, like, it's cool to see him play with other people's toys. It's kind of nice because you kind of get to see a superhero versus zombies more or less. You get to see Eric's take on that in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very much a zombie story to me.
Oh, it's a total zombie story.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a world that's been overrun by something story.
The mindless.
I mean, I guess they do. They are cannibals, so I guess they are more like zombie-like in that regard.
They've got skull heads. They're cannibals, and they all just want to attack you.
And it gets.
They're a little smarter than zombies, but they're basically zombies.
It's super contagious, kind of like the 28 days later infection.
Yeah.
Like if you just get like a drippy drop whiff waft, you're gonna fucking get it. It's cool. I liked it, man.
The only thing I kind of wish, I don't know, maybe I do, maybe I don't, because I guess it depends on how it would have come out. I like when Erik worked on Defenders, just getting a different artist to ink his style, because I see him ink his stuff all the time. I always like to see what other people's stuff look like on Larsen. It gives it a little bit of a change, and I know he probably can't do that in his own book just because of the cost. So I was hoping that, with him working on a Marvel book, we might see someone kind of ink his stuff and just see what it looks like, but that wasn't the case. But it could have gone good or bad, because sometimes you get inkers that just don't do the job justice.
Well, I don't know. I don't know at this point I would ever want to see someone else ink Erik, and I think Erik has said that he doesn't want anyone else inking him at this point because the way he draws isn't really conducive to that process.
Well, I don't know. Like Klaus Janson on Defenders was amazing. It looked incredible. I think there are guys that could still really do a good job. But yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, if he's just gonna do like simple, real quick layouts, then probably can't work.
Yeah, because the other guy's going to have to do a lot of legwork based on that sort of thing.
Myself, I love that he, drew and wrote it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it was like, hell yeah.
I just feel like we never get a chance anymore, and there have been good inkers on Larsen in Spider-Man and stuff like that. Like I said, in Defenders, Klaus Janson. I forget.
Well,
Thor
just curious,
Janson
who would you marry? Who would you marry to his work on this book? If you had your way.
I don't know.
I'm going to say Nick Bradshaw.
Al Milgrom.
Is that Well,
I actually
it would give it more of an old school kind of look.
I can't think of anybody. See, I don't think of artists in terms of pencilers and inkers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I can't separate the two half the time. Where I know inkers do a lot of the detail work, but it's just hard for me to like think of an inker because I can't think of an inker who draws significantly different on. I don't even know how to phrase this. I really don't. It's like I can't think of inkers in terms of like what's their inking style on this particular penciler. I
get you.
Because I always just think of that penciler style.
That's because you just don't see it that much.
I guess. I mean, I guess I can spot an Al Gordon from about 50 paces. He's like really obvious, but he's like the only one.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who comes to mind, but I just like seeing the different interpretations.
I'm going to stick with Nick Bradshaw.
Yeah, like I don't know who Nick Bradshaw is.
Art Adams, basically. If you thought no one was ever going to come along and draw like Art Adams, you're wrong. Nick Bradshaw draws almost just... He's the guy that I showed you that did the Thor, and I was like, look, he's like if Ryan Otley face on Art Adams' art.
Yeah, okay.
And the only reason I'm choosing him is because it's basically like, I know you'd never get Art Adams to do a whole book like that. So it's like, fuck, next best thing, man. Let's get Nick Bradshaw on there.
Like Otley.
Maybe, I would say maybe Terry Austin, who did some of his Amazing Spider-Man stuff, just to see that team up again, because I'd really, that's kind of hits a sweet spot for me.
I just like Eric's inks too much to want anybody else to touch it.
Yeah. No,
remember those backups in 200, in 100?
100, yeah.
Wait, was that Erik inking other people or other people inking Erik?
Other people inking him. So like Bruce Timm, I think Terry Austin did one.
Those are all cool, but none of them are as good as Erik doing it himself.
Yeah.
I get it.
No, I think sometimes though, like other inkers, like sometimes Erik's stuff can be a little rough, and it's fun to see a lot. I just thought he can't do it in his own comic because I just think the cost to hire somebody to do it, that it would be a cool opportunity once in a while just to see. So anyway, moving on, but that was just my 2 cents.
We didn't get to shit on the colorist. I'm very disappointed in this colorist. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to be that mad. Basically, though, I will say that botchamania on some of this coloring, only because it just was oversaturated. On the underground.
Do you remember back in the day I used to rag on Nikos because of how everything was shiny and the yellow skies and everything felt like it was way overexposed. Who's it?
Yep.
Whoever is coloring this issue is falling into all those traps.
Yeah, it's funny because when that first happened, it was around the issue where I think it was the issue when the Godland guy came. What's his name? Archer. I forget. On Savage Dragon, when the guy from Godland made an appearance. I think that was Nikos's first issue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I loved it. And now when I look back at it, I'm like, I think exactly what you're saying, Jim. It's like it's overdone, over-rendered, too shiny.
Too many highlights, white highlights, unnecessary.
I think I've really come accustomed to the way they've been coloring recently with a lot of flats and just like the standout characters kind of getting the highlights and stuff.
Yeah.
For me, I was okay with the choices that the colorist made on the rendering and the choices they made on the highlights and whatnot. What sort of like killed me a bit was just the mud. Like there was oversaturation that hid the detail. So like you'll actually like there's parts in the underground scenes, mostly when they get above ground it's okay, but in the underground scenes you just lose some of Erik's work to the darkness of the coloring, and it's mud.
Or the choice of colors. I know we talked about there's one scene, there's a double splash where like Erik does this classic like villains on the sides of the edges of the paper where you see their mouths and stuff, and we had talked about like the color selection where he kind of just some of those guys in the in the forefront were colored blend in with the background, which seemed like a weird choice.
The teeth on the double page spread in the lower left hand corner,
which are awesome. I love that. It's at the second page, the double page spread, where it's just like, it's a weird choice, man. I would have made that pop, because it just looks like a bunch of rocks the way he colored it. Right. And really, if you would have colored it like it's someone in the front, it really would have popped and really looked fucking crazy.
Yeah, he sort of did the thing we were talking about, the old retro review where the colorist accidentally fucked the depth up with the color choices. And you kind of, he pushed that red skull into the background when they're actually the most foreground object, and so it's kind of nuts.
Wait, which one? Which red skull are you talking about?
Look at the double page spread, and for the listeners, it's the second page of the story. Yep. There's a double page spread. Look on the bottom left corner.
Right,
it blends in like rocks.
Yeah, those teeth. Yeah, they're supposed to be yellow and red.
Yep. And
instead they look like rocks in the background when they should have been popped.
I see what you're saying. So that's in the background. That got pushed in the background as rubble instead of teeth.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it would have looked amazing if it was, bright red and yellow or whatever.
Yeah. Actually, you can see the top part of the jaw too, just slightly above it.
Yeah,
also colored
It shouldn't
gray.
be that hard. You should have noticed that right away.
Right.
Especially considering, like I said, that's the most foremost object. It's kind of like, whoa. But other than that, though, I saw some people hardcore shitting on it. I'm not going to hardcore shit on it, because I think there's also times when it...
You're talking about the coloring?
Yeah, the coloring. I think there's also times when it completely is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like the MODOK thing, I think is great.
I'm still hoping at some point Eric or someone post these in a flat-looking kind of like old school comic, just to see the difference.
He did post all of the black and white.
Yeah, I know that, but it would be nice. Okay. And the black and white looks amazing. I feel like that would look amazing published.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of details I caught in the black and white that I feel like the colors muddled up. But I think that's the weakest. That's the weakest part of this book, is the colors.
Yeah, that's it. And then, of course, it also needs said, before we get into the real meat and potatoes of it, the unfortunate editing mistake of crediting Captain America to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Oh, right. That story eclipsed everything else about this book.
Yeah, that pissed me off. Because I think it was a super bummer for Erik, because that's all people were talking about, and it was like, oh, really?
And it's not corrected in the digital copy. It still says Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
No, jeez.
Are you serious? Yeah. God damn it, Marvel! Come on, you're owned by Disney.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Pay an intern. That's all I was gonna say.
The other thing that drives me crazy is that they make the Larsen cover the variant edition.
That also is such a huge pain in my ass. Because now I got to look at this digital copy with the main cover forever, and the variant cover is not included at all. I guess digital loses in this case.
You know what's funny? It's variant cover artist is Erik Larsen and Edgar Delgado, which I think he did the colors. Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's any relation to Ferran Delgado, the letterer for Savage Dragon.
Weird, if so. Weird.
That's the other thing I sorely miss too. Is I'm so used to seeing Erik's art with beautiful lettering, and I just feel like, the lettering, it's not horrible, but it's definitely not the same quality.
I thought the lettering was pretty standard for.
It's standard, but I'm used.
But no,
to,
I mean standard for Larsen. I think it tried to be retro in a lot of ways, and I think it mostly succeeded.
I feel like these letters, which are typical for kind of corporate comics now, they just feel like stickers on top of things.
Yeah, but the sound effects are like that in Savage Dragon now. Ever since they went to,
I feel like they still look. To me, Savage Dragon's letters still look like they're hand lettered. They still have something about it that doesn't make it look as.
We talked about it. You know exactly what it is. It's the lack of line weight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, these sound effects are just way too thin.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's kind of like if you want them to look more organic, you have to work it up.
I'll point it out when we get to some of these pages, but like some of the sound effects work, but yeah, you're right, Raven. It's the ones where you can definitely see the real thin lines, and it's like it looks like a sticker. Like there's speech bubbles where the little Asian girl's like yelling the IE, like the AIIEE, when she's like screaming, and they just look like kind of one of those like window decals that you stick on or something. You know what I mean? Like those reusable stickers.
As I flip through, every single sound effect is a big flat color.
Yeah.
And I also think that you have an opportunity to have sound effects have personality through color even. Like you can throw a gradient in it, you can like sort of have some texture on it. Like basically this is just it fell into too much of a font. Like way too
Well,
thin
I'm
font.
looking right now, and those IEs that you spoke of, they're used twice on the same page, and they are identical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see that another place, like you'll see some of the same, like the sound effects is like 100% the same sound effect. Like I'm looking at two red skulls. Looking at a panel of red skulls. One's riding a Green Goblin glider, if you really want to nail the panel down. And it says blam blam, and there's no personality difference between the blams. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, it just could look better, that's all.
I don't know how many Marvel comics actually have this kind of sound effects anymore, but I mean, it's not horrible, but from somebody that's been a long-time reader of Savage Dragon and his favorite book, you notice, I feel like it's really noticeable.
Well, this book layout-wise is very, very Kirby. Everything is 4-panel grids, 9-panel grids, 6-panel grids, and he's very much channeling the Joe Simon, Jack Kirby stuff.
Absolutely.
Which does make this book stand out in terms of like look, because most Marvel comics do not look like this anymore.
I wouldn't know.
Absolutely.
Oh, I assure you.
No, yeah. It's very retro looking. It's
but
funny.
I like the look of it.
Every other page isn't a double page spread. You see.
Oh, okay.
That seems really that's really common at Marvel and DC is that double page spreads have like taken over.
Huh.
It's very noticeable, I find.
Better double page spreads than none, I guess.
Page 4 is hilarious. There's it's a classic 4-panel page, but the action in it, in the punch where he punches Red Skull and it says Brock as the sound effect, that Red Skull face doesn't get any more Jack Kirby than that.
With the eyes all little.
Yeah, just the weird Jack Kirby face, the mouth, everything about it is the 1970s when Jack Kirby returned to Captain America. The Bronze Age Kirby.
Oh, so not Golden Age Kirby.
No, this is total Bronze Age Kirby. If you looked at when he returned back to Marvel, he jumped on Captain America, and it's a great run. It's spectacular, and there's lots of weird faces in it and lots of weird Kirbyisms, and this book channels it 100%.
Well, I love this 9-panel grid page, but I love 9-panel grids.
Yeah,
in general,
that's super Kirby. Just the back and forth fight.
Yep.
Clang, ram, wood, thuck.
The listener, it's just there's that one. I don't know how many 9-panel pages are on
this
book.
I was looking through. I don't think he repeats a layout. No, it's a lie. I guess there's.
Oh no, he does.
2 6-panel pages here. Never mind.
Yeah, but the 9-panel page is pretty cool.
Yeah. He does not do another one. No, wait. There is one more. There's 2. Never mind. But
so the gist of this book is that there was a battle between Red Skull and Captain America. Red Skull let off. He was killed by Captain America or somebody, and released some kind of virus mist.
Right.
Which mutated and infected everybody.
Well, it was intended to infect everyone in New York, but then it mutated, and now it's spread across the entire world.
And so everyone turns into a Red Skull type looking character, and they all want to attack basically Captain America or anybody that's
they want to
Anybody.
they want to assimilate each other, but they primarily want to kill Captain America specifically.
Gotcha. And they all seem to be able to talk normal and almost think normal, but they all have that one objective.
Right. They have almost a hive mind that sort of unites them. But they can talk and they do strategize, but they are very single-minded about their goals because they'll kill themselves trying to kill Captain America.
Right. And we've gotten to a point where it seems like most people are assimilated. Everything is like just destroyed. It's a zombie apocalypse basically. And Cap is just battling hordes of these zombies. This is way in the future because Cap's pretty much old and gray.
Yep, and he's alone. You barely see any other like signs of other heroes.
No, like I think Raven. The only sign you see of the other, like the Marvel universe, is the Green Goblin glider that one of the Skull guys is on, presumably,
and
the Green Goblin,
and the helicarrier, the Shield helicarrier.
That's right. And MODOK, who shows up later.
Yeah, but he's a Cap villain, and Cap's always been tied with Shield, so that really those are more Cap things.
Yeah. But yeah. So he bumps into a bunch of survivors that are in the bottom of this like skyscraper basement or somewhere. The backgrounds in this issue are all pretty cool. I enjoyed them. Lots of like mazy kind of malls or kind of weird basements that Erik always is great at drawing.
Yeah, lots of debris,
puddles, pipes or something like that, brick.
like a discarded tire. Like it's really just cool shit.
Yeah. Lots of action. I mean, this is all plays to Erik's strengths. I mean, I would say this book is non-stop action. Pretty much.
Yeah, Cap's basically on the run the entire issue. Yeah,
Which is great. I mean, the pace on this is fantastic.
Yeah. He runs into survivors, but of course, when you run into survivors in this scenario, you've basically doomed them all.
Yeah. Lots of great panels of Cap action, like him holding up the shield and the guy smacking right into it, the splaying. You know, him firing the shield, and you just see like bodies of Red Skulls flying in each direction.
And Cap's very specific about not killing anybody because he still believes there's a cure.
Talks about freedom the whole time.
He does talk a lot about America and freedom. You'd think in a scenario like this, you'd tone it down a bit, Steve.
Yeah. It's like we're just worried about the world surviving. At this point.
Yeah. I think the ideals of America are great and all, but maybe focus a little bit more on. Yeah, 'cause that's always a bit weird about Captain America. Because the thing I like most about Captain America is that he does represent America, but he isn't like really a dick about it.
Right.
He isn't. He's usually because he doesn't pick sides. He tries to be. He isn't impartial, but he also doesn't pick sides. It's kind of hard to articulate sometimes, but generally he doesn't stand around pontificating about America and how great she is.
Can I just say shout outs to me, one of the best, like, it's like a funny visual, but it's also kind of like creepy world building, is when Marcia, you know, the young black lady, gets shot in the middle of the fight. The Red Skulls attack the survivors. She gets shot, and the one Red Skull says, "The girl's been shot. She's as good as dead. She's useless to the cause." And then there's a kid. It's like a kid body with a Red Skull head on it, which is a fucking hilarious visual, but also what it says is so creepy and like subtly world building. It goes, "She's only so much meat now, fit only for the stew pot."
Yeah, it's gross.
It's great, dude. It's really great. It really like makes these like Red Skulls so much creepier.
Yeah, and they're still racist as F.
Yeah.
Like,
well, they all have
your filthy hands off me.
Yeah, they all have Red Skull's personality.
Yeah, right.
Because that's kind of what's happened. Is Red Skull has basically disseminated his beliefs, his worldview into the population through a virus.
Yeah. So half of Cap's kind of survivor crew kind of succumbs to the virus when they get attacked, and so he escapes with couple of survivors. The old man, Abe, who's kind of a doctor. There's a young Asian girl, and
Marcia.
I guess Marcia, who just got shot. So.
But gets a blood transfusion from Cap, who happens to be the universal donor.
Yeah. I think that's always been a thing with him. I think it was part of why he got picked to be a super soldier. Or at least it was retconned to be. He's a pretty all-around useful blood egg.
It's kind of funny. Just, seems like a kind of a... As I was reading it, I was like, oh, that's kind of a funny little thing. Just becomes insanely important, that's all.
Yeah, funny thing about an Erik Larsen book and focus on blood. Weird that.
But no, I'm saying, like, imagine if he wasn't a universal donor.
Oh, yeah, that would just be no story. Doomed.
Well, I'm just saying there'd be some people who'd be fucked. But at any rate, I think it's really cool. Tell me if I'm wrong, boys. It's a slight Commandy nod with the Statue of Liberty.
Absolutely.
All right.
And on the raft.
As someone who hasn't read Commandy, I'm saying even I noticed, so...
Boo.
Hey, I don't hate it. I just don't have time and money.
I haven't read it either. Don't worry. Don't hate.
I'll get it. Don't worry. I'll get it. It's coming.
I think you guys would enjoy it if you.
No,
like
I think I
Savage
would
Dragon.
too. Yeah. I mean, what's funny is I've read things that like were leaning on Commandy, and I like those. So.
I think you read it and then you go back and read the Savage World stuff, and you'd be like, "Whoa!" It would give you a new take on stuff.
Oh man, I can't wait. The shield carrier is sweet. I feel like we don't get to see. Talk about Craig. You said getting to see Erik play with other toys.
Yeah.
I don't know that we get to see stuff like this in Savage Dragon all the time.
No, we don't.
Like just a big piece of tech.
Yeah.
It's cool. I like it.
Yeah, he goes and walks in and is immediately kind of shot at and stuff, so he keeps his survivors by the doorway and busts in, and we get one of the coolest splash pages in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I flipped that page and I was like, wow.
Now, I'm not going to lie. I don't care about MODOK at all.
It's still a cool visual, you must admit.
I enjoy him for the visual. I don't know much about the character outside of what Kirby's done. I don't know what they've done with him since, but I love
He's
the Jack
just
Kirby
a big
character.
brain in a chair.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Pop
it's
quiz,
just...
what does MODOK stand for?
Murder. Wait, murder. I know. I used to know this. I got to actually look at the name.
MODOK.
MOD. Murder. Murder organism. I'm getting into them in the wrong order, aren't I?
I don't even know.
Jesus, thanks, man.
But I do know it is murderous organism, deadly organism, something, killing. Blah, blah, blah. I think it's a cool visual. I think the idea to have the Red Skull virus infect MODOK is genius. I think it's fucking genius because it's a great visual.
Apparently, MODOK is the reason that they have a hive mind because he is a telepath.
Right.
So once Cap defeats him, the actual hive mind part breaks down.
Yeah, they still have that singular purpose, but they can't talk.
They're less organized.
Right.
So apparently his name was based on mobile organism designed only for computing, and then he changed his name when he became kind of evil to mobile organism designed only for killing.
Oh, okay.
Love it, dude.
Terrific.
I love it. Yeah, and he gets a big old shield to the forehead. So
That's awesome. Choke.
Suck it. Yeah, it's fucking fantastic, dude.
You get the great explosions, the Larsen explosions, lots of Kirby dots and stuff on the pages following.
I feel like it needs said, we haven't said it yet, the narration on this does a fantastic job of selling the bleakness.
Yeah.
It also does a really good job of selling this world. Like, I love, it kills me how few people get it, but like, words and pictures, right? So like, the narration bubble, much maligned. Thoughts bubbles, much maligned. But the reason why you use those words is to convey information that you couldn't get. And so when it talks about the stale air, or like as he's in the shield helicarrier, And he's saying, right before he sees MODOK, he's like, the heat rises with every step. You wouldn't obviously know that. There's an audible hum, a buzz, pressure. All of these things you would not know. So
right.
I love it.
You have to be told.
Yeah, I love it. I think that was really masterful use of that. And, he uses that all throughout this issue. I think it's really cool.
I also love the wordplay. Like, he keeps repeating the phrase, a scratch, a touch, a smell. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really effective in this book. Like, it's almost like something that everybody knows in this universe, like that. And he keeps saying it, so it's like almost haunting, you know? Like,
yeah, it's cool.
It's creepy. And
think about our modern situation. How many times have you heard "wash your hands"? Wash your hands.
Social distancing.
Yeah, 6 feet back. Wash your hands.
Yeah, it's
like we're living it, man.
Never heard the term social distancing before last month, and now it's like part of the lexicon.
It'll be a meme forever.
Yeah, dude. I'm just saying, I think the writing on this really sings.
Well, it certainly plays up the desperation, especially this final stand of Captain America. Just all the skulls are coming after him, and he's just beating them all back, but he can't do it forever, and he decides, maybe if I give up, they'll stop.
It's here's where you get into some nice metaphor action. So he's fighting, he's like, man, fucking trapped, there's nothing else, and then he realizes, he's like, oh shit, it's me. He's like, it's me they want. You get that awesome splash page where he's like, it's me.
Yeah, this Captain America face is my favorite panel in the book.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Even the smoking background looks fantastic. I think the colorist actually did a really good job. Like, you could almost feel like the fire is kind of reflecting off his face, the way the glow is and the shadow play and the red smoke. It looks great.
And I think it's a cool kind of, like I said, like there's some obvious meta commentary. I won't get overly political, but obviously the Red Skull metaphor for, hive mind of people that are, they're not acting in their best interests. Like, they're just sort of the only thing they know is they just want to have like a hive mind, a unity, but like that's it. And so like here he kind of like, this is his low point. Like it's his breaking point. He's like fucking just tired of fighting. And he's like, you know what? He's like, maybe I'm the problem. He was like, if I wasn't here, they wouldn't have an enemy.
Well, yeah, he's like, basically, they're the new normal now, and he's just the one in the way.
It's cool. And I don't know about you guys, but I was like, God damn, is he going to write this bleak-ass ending? I thought
it wouldn't be the first time. These Marvel the End books don't always end well.
I thought for a minute that's how this shit was going to end. I was like, oh, no, dude. Cap, fucking come on. It got me. I bought it.
And he was going to give up until he saw one last glimmer of hope. Because Abe reverted back into a man.
Which is cool because he lost all his facial hair.
Yeah, all his hair fell out, exactly. And Cap basically had to find out why. And it turns out it was Captain America all along.
He still has his yarmulke, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he must have put that back on.
He picked that back up. That Cap face when he sees Abe, the panel after he sees Abe, it's a great panel. I like that.
My shield, Abe. It's good, dude. And I'm telling you, just slight correction. He doesn't see Abe and get hope. He fights because Marcia needs him to, dude.
Right.
She tells him, she's like, please, don't let him win. And that's what gets, the old patriotic pud pounders pounding puds again. I don't know. Yeah. I tried to be patriotic.
One more time, a final push. One last fight for freedom. One last battle for the human race.
Love it, dude. Love it. I tell you, I'm not a Captain America fan. I don't hate him. I just never really liked him. But I like this character, and this was good, dude.
I'm telling you, and for the listeners, if you like this stuff, pick up the Bronze Age Kirby Captain America. It's bonkers. Mm-hmm. It's weird-ass shit. It's corny at times, but it's fun-ass comics. It's so fun. They have a whole omnibus just on the Bronze Age Kirby, and they're just a lot of wacky, fun concepts going on. 70s Kirby is fucking fun as shit.
Nice.
If you listeners have not really dove into the treasure chest of 70s Kirby comics like Machine Man and Captain America and the Eternals and Devil Dinosaur and stuff like that. Commandy, it's the Demon. It's fun stuff. Totally bonkers, but if you like this, you will love that stuff.
Nice, dude. I'm into it. Yeah, like I said, I'm not really a Cap guy, but goddamn if I wasn't feeling the old Stars and Stripes reading this shit.
So in the end...
Yeah, John Day appearance.
Yep, that's John Day with a gun.
Yeah, hunting down the Red Skulls, and Cap's living his life as a donor, a universal donor.
Well, so I think the general gist of it is Captain America is no more. So Steve Rogers is now basically a blood bank for the entire world, so he can't risk his life anymore. So he's effectively retired. Although it is interesting that he's fought for all these people's freedom, but in a way he is now a prisoner because he can't really leave. He always has to be there to resupply the blood for the population, for billions and billions of people.
But Jim, it doesn't matter because his blood literally flows through their veins.
That's true.
Freedom.
He sacrificed himself in the end. Sacrificed a normal life and for the good of humanity.
And that's that juxtaposition. Like, he is like a prisoner. He's like held in there. But, Abe tells him, he's like, how you feeling? He's like, yeah, it feels like freedom. Boom. It's good, dude. I think Erik is an underrated writer. I think all anybody focuses on is like fucking, shit cannons. And here's a character who shoots period blood all over people and stuff like that. But I think he can write his goddamn ass off.
Yeah.
He writes a goddamn great superhero comic. He's not trying to be Moore. He's not trying to be Alan Moore. I didn't mean Moore by Alan Moore at the time, but now that I think about it, he's not trying to make a huge narrative. He's trying to make fun superhero comics, and he does a good job. It's not supposed to be Nobel Prize winning shit. It's supposed to be a great beat 'em up fisticuffs yarn that is fun to read, and that's exactly what this was. And
yet I do think at that same time, that he commands metaphors and shit like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think he absolutely can do that stuff. I don't think anybody associates him with that, but I think it's a crime. I think he's fucking underrated as fuck when it comes to writing.
Right.
Because he knows how to use the tools of the comics. Like you were saying, how he can make, the dialogue describe, the feelings of what's going on, and he knows the strengths and weaknesses of comics that he can play with it to get the best out of it.
Well, like you said, even the repetition of a turn of phrase, it's like really drives it home. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's good. It's fucking good, dude. I would play a video game of this scenario. You know what I'm saying? They should make I hope the MCU. I'm checked the fuck out. But if they made Captain America versus basically Red Skull zombies into a movie, I'd watch the shit out of that. If they made this into a movie, I'd watch it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'd ruin it by shoving a bunch of other cameos in it, but goddamn, this would be a great movie. I would watch it. Fantastic. Jim, your thoughts?
I enjoyed it quite a bit as a standalone one-off story. I agree. I agree. Erik Larsen is a underrated writer. I think he does this emotional stuff really well.
I'm gonna throw one last thing in when you're done.
Okay, go ahead.
Just keep doing your thing.
That's it. I'm done. I think generally it looks pretty good. The coloring could have been a little bit less loud, but otherwise I think it was good. I don't know if it was worth $5. I think Marvel overprices a lot of their stuff like this. I mean, this is only a 30-page comic.
Funny you should mention it. It ties exactly into the thing I wanted to say. So I'll get your thoughts on it. You too, Craig. So basically, it's funny. It's funny the kismet, the timing. This comic came out back in February, but we started this talking about the potential market collapse, with no new comics or whatever else. A discussion that I've been having with people is about the value of a single issue. the monthly issue is in jeopardy, is what they're saying. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, maybe these floppies will go away, and they'll just do
Floppies.
trades
Don't use
and
that
shit
word
like
in
that.
my presence.
I didn't use it because I think for me it's blasphemy. Plus, I know that it was created on.
I can flop a trade paperback too.
I'm pretty sure it was created to be derogatory.
Yeah.
So I never call them floppies myself, but somebody I was talking
Just
to
call
was
them
calling
singles.
Singles. They're singles. They're monthlies or singles. But, like, check it out. So, like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, it needs to go away, or, oh, it's going to die, and if it goes away, it'll be no big deal. Let me tell you something. I think that, like, things like Captain America, The End, things like The Amazing Screw-On Head, things like that really prove that there is there's a validity to this format, right?
Right.
To the
standalone one-shot format?
To the one shot, to the monthly, even if it isn't I'm saying it has value. And I've had this conversation several times in the last few days where people are like, if monthlies go away, I just don't give a shit. And I'm like, well, you know what? It's not my fault that, like, you only read shitty comics that aren't written well. Like, if you read a good comic that's written well, you're like, absolutely, this shit fucking works. It's fantastic. This fucking Captain America The End had all the world building it fucking needed to tell you how desperate and how dire, how terrible the world was, how bad everything was. And it ended in a concise, like, really succinct
satisfying
way.
end.
Satisfying, yeah. Gave you even hope for the future, sort of let you know shit's gonna be okay. And I don't know, I'm just saying, it's really.
You could have picked up that book, been from Japan, never read an American comic book before in your life, and enjoyed that, and not had to know anything about Captain America, really.
Well, I mean, essentially, I wasn't from Japan, but, like, I don't really read Captain America, I don't know shit hardly about him. I know he's Steve Rogers. I know Red Skull is Hitler's bellboy, and I know Bucky was brought back from the dead to become Winter Soldier. For a while Bucky was a golden cow like Aunt May and Uncle Ben. I mean, I have loose knowledge, but I'm not a fan, not even close. And yet I loved this shit. I loved it, and so I'm just saying it's kind of funny just the timing of us reviewing this at this place in time, because I feel like this standalone issue is a really exemplary. It's a great way to just put this in someone's hand. If someone says, if monthlies go away, who cares? Say, here, read this.
You won't get stuff like this, yeah.
No, you won't.
I used to love books, and I don't think they come out anymore either, but like Marvel Comics Presents, where you had new writers or artists, and you got like 3 short stories, or maybe they were serialized, but they were just like little snippets here and there. I miss those things, but there's a place. Even Eric's one shot with the Spider-Man was like kind of like 2 short stories in one. The only way you're making that into a trade is if you bunch up a bunch of one shots or something. I don't know.
I personally am a fan of the one shot story, the done in one, but the appeal of comics for me is the serialization of them. It's the coming back every month to get another piece of the story. Mm-hmm. And when you're done, when you've read years and years of it, to have an ongoing narrative to have.
Yeah.
I think
we're on the same page. I agree.
I think books like Marvel Comics Presents or like DC Comics Presents, those books have more limited appeal because they're standalone. There's no hook to bring you back for the next issue if everything is going to just either reset or change or just be another one-off story that you can come into and leave and come into at any time. There's no hook to keep you coming back every issue.
Yeah, I think the hook for me on those was the talent. So,
yeah,
whereas the long form kind of serialized version, you might have the same team for a year or something. The Marvel Comics Presents, you get to see new artists or new writers kind of and cut their chops on, or I don't know, like just trying to make a name for themselves. And there was a lot of cool creators that came out of that.
Unproven creators are a hard sell in general. So you get a book with a bunch of nobodies, or unknowns rather, and you're going to struggle to sell it, is all it's going to boil down to.
Well, a lot of times you'd get maybe one, you'd get a serial. So like Weapon X had Barry Windsor Smith, and then the other 2 stories, the 3
that's
stories
almost,
might be unknowns.
in my opinion, almost a better way to do it. Instead of having new people test things out, get your biggest names to do short run stuff that they otherwise wouldn't have any other place to go, and then have backups to introduce other things. So you get that big marquee lead every time. And when you don't do that, there's no reason to come back, and so the book sales fall, and then they get canceled. So, but again, I prefer the serials to the one-offs, almost 90% of the time.
And I think we're all saying that. I think, and Raven, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you can correct me, but I think what you're saying is, it's still good to have these one-shots, and it's fun. And if you don't have the singles market, you don't get these unless it's in some kind of anthology.
Right.
Pretty much that's it. I think that, essentially to what I was speaking to, I have nothing against monthly serialization because that's still singles. That's still monthlies. I'm saying that, there were people I was talking to. I saw the conversation a lot. It wasn't just, a few people I was talking to. Well, they were like, oh, if the direct market goes away, we'll still have trades, so who cares? And it's like, no, dude, monthlies have a place.
Well, and it goes right to the point that we were talking about where we were saying $5. Jim was like, $5 for this. Well, if it's nothing but trades, your minimum price point is going to be, $12, $13 and higher.
$13, $12 to $20. Some maybe even $25.
Right.
And the thing is, single issues subsidize trades because you get to sell it twice. Sure.
Yeah.
That's the economics of comic books. You sell the single issues, pay your creators up front, and then on the back end you collect the stuff to reap as much profit as you can out of it.
And a lot of people that buy singles also buy trade collections of the same thing.
Right.
Absolutely.
It goes for Savage Dragon. I have all the collections, and I still buy.
You eliminate those single issues. Now, not only do you have to pay up front for 6 issues of content that you're not going to get any money for until it's complete. You don't get that first sale on the single issue market over several months before you recollect it in a book.
Right.
And those book sales, if they don't continue indefinitely, you don't get your money back for years.
Well, people are a lot less likely to try new stuff, and then they're just going to stick with what they buy, and then they're eventually just going to drop out of comics when those comics end.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you right now, I'll buy various different Image books and try them out, at least the first 2 issues, and
Absolutely.
if I don't like it, I'm dropping it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take that risk with a trade unless it's marked down or for sale because I just don't have the $12 to $20 to take a chance on it.
Now, I'm going to be honest. My big problem with Marvel in particular, it's exclusively this problem I have with Marvel. Marvel likes their $5 books. Pretty much everything I've been interested in reading at Marvel has come with a $5 price tag. And every time I go to buy it, I decide not to. Because $5 is just too much.
It's the breaking point.
Even for 30 pages of story, it's just too much. Because I go back over to DC, where I'm getting similar page counts for $4, but I'm also getting they've been putting out these part of the DC Black Label. They've been putting out these prestige format books for $6 or $7 that have 60 pages.
Yeah.
They're just a way better value than anything Marvel publishes. So I almost always want to put my money towards that because it's just a better value.
I don't know if you guys remember. I know Erik talks about this all the time where the price of comics used to always track with kind of the price of a candy bar.
Right.
He said that. He said that a few days ago.
And I'll be honest.
Did he say that a few days ago? He says that all the time.
And to be fair, candy bars cost $2 now.
Yeah, he said he actually literally used that. I think either today or yesterday. He said,
"No kidding."
He said candy bar double the price of a candy bar, and that's where a comic lands.
Yeah, a king size candy bar is $2.20 now. It's fucking bananas.
I drink Coke a lot. Coke is $1.79.
Yep, $2 for a soda.
Yeah, and so it's I think really the problem when people were like, "Oh, $5," it's really. The value of $5 has dropped.
Indeed.
A lot.
Yeah.
So, It's rough. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I don't know. To me,
and
it's
I
still
feel
worth
like with comics too, it's like it's not worth it for younger people that don't have the money. I'm saying in general. I'm not saying for everybody or whatever, but I'm just saying like if I was in high school or just had a part-time job, I couldn't afford comics. I'm pretty comfortable in my lifestyle now that I can afford it, but I don't think I would be into this hobby if I was 21 years old and making the pay I was making at 21, because I just didn't have that extra income to spend on comics.
I've got weeks and weeks of comics that in my wish list that I haven't picked up yet. Just today, I got paid for my unemployment for the last 2 weeks. I haven't been paid in 2 weeks because I've been out of work because of the coronavirus stuff. And this is the first time I've had $20 to rub together to grab like 8 books.
Right.
And that's not even a dent in the 20 or 30 that I have in my wish list. God help me if I was buying print and I had to pay for all these books. Because I'd be
wish list and shit is really an eye opener, isn't it?
Yeah,
I've been wish listing games on my Switch instead of buying them, and holy shit, I blinked and I had like 150 games in my wish list. I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I don't have time in my life to play 150 games.
Yeah,
wish list, real eye opener.
What's the price of a digital comic?
Same as print.
The same
exactly
as...
the same.
Wow.
Well, there's 2 phases. One on new releases. And also Marvel and DC books in particular, the price is the same as the print comic. So all new books are priced the same on release. Image, Dark Horse, IDW, Boom, and I think Dynamite. After 1 month, the price drops in half. So a $4 book costs $2.
That's good.
See, it's crazy. It's like
but Marvel and DC don't do that though. They stay full price always until the trade paperback collection comes out. And then Marvel will drop their prices in half because a trade collection costs about half of what it costs to buy all the comics new.
But, people don't want to do that because it gets spoiled. I want to know before it gets spoiled. I just, it's weird because I keep going back because I do think there's a lot of parallels with the music industry, but it's different in the music industry. You pay more for the physical copy, rightfully so, but you can jump on Bandcamp and pay half the price. Or a lot of times it's just pay what you want in certain cases to get the digital version. So
and digital comics go on sale all the time. I almost never pay full price for back issues. It's almost always just new stuff that I need to read right now that I pay full price for.
I just can't imagine why they can't make it $1 cheaper.
Because
you're not paying for the paper or the print or the distribution.
It's a myth. Well, I'll break it.
Well, I guess
I'll
break
it down for you real quick. Print is negligible. Paper, printing presses, in the volumes that comics sell, the value is pennies. All of the money in comics is production. It's the penciler, the inker, the colorist, the editor, the letterer. That's what all the money goes.
But even if it's a $5 book, even if 50 cents comes out of the printing, the labor and stuff like that, I mean, you figure that they could make it a different price point because there is something different.
But then there is also the factor of pissing off, undercutting your physical stores.
The retailers are
I
believe,
are very testy,
and that's probably why.
Especially with new releases, they don't care so much about back issues; they only care about new releases. But again, it's because comics actually don't cost that much to print, so there's not a lot of savings even without print. And also, Comixology Amazon takes 30% off every sale. So that's your distribution cost.
It's funny, though. It's like, again, the parallel with the music industry. There's record stores. There's independent record stores.
But not as many
mall
as there
record
used
stores.
To be by a wide margin.
No, but, I mean, it's the same thing with comics. There's definitely not as many comic shops out there as there used to be. Look at the 90s and how many comic shops there were versus today.
Well,
I think it's a very big parallel.
My feeling about comparing vinyl or music stores to comic shops is that I see vinyl as very niche. People get Spotify subscriptions these days. That's the music industry. People who buy vinyl are just people who are way into music or way into collecting. They're a very tiny minority. Do we want comics to be a tiny minority industry? Do we want it to be niche like that? And I don't think that's healthy for for comics, not the industry of comics, but comics. if things get too insular, too small, it's just people will make comics, like Rick Raven says. People love comics, will make comics, but the comics won't be available, not widely, or in the formats people want.
Yeah, I don't think it's that far off, though. Honestly, to be honest, because top selling comics only sell 100,000 copies, so we're getting there. And you look at vinyl and vinyl distribution worldwide. I'm not talking about just the United States. Right. I bet you the numbers are comparable because records are sold worldwide, whereas Marvel Comics are sold worldwide. You can get comics in Europe, in Japan.
I don't think the levels like music is, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm talking about
Australia and England both get American comics every Wednesday, same as
like in Tokyo. There's basically like one shop, like one brand shop. I'm having a brain fart here.
One American comic store?
One type of shop that sells American comics. I mean, I'm sure there's more little like niche ones, but just one type of stuff. I forget the name of it, right? Blister, I think it's called. That's all I could find. They have different branches, but you don't really find American comics there. I didn't really look in Europe, but I mean, obviously you can get them because I mean we have plenty of fanatics from England and Germany and stuff like that. But I don't think it's to the level that's in the States.
I think that it's a lot harder to gauge that as far as like the popularity or success of digital versus physical, mostly because you have, there are things like, who was it, like Miley Cyrus or Jack White, one of the two, they had like the number one grossing, album because of their physical sales. And
could be Jack White because he owns his own actual vinyl pressing plant too.
Well, see, so there you go. But I forget who it was. Somebody was like, other than Jack, they were like, taking a stand. They're like, well, they're like, we don't know. They're like, it's not proven that pays really well. Most people think it pays shitty. And so in fact, I hear that all the time. Like I see musicians being like, cool, time to get my pennies this month because of Spotify's payouts are so shitty.
Yeah, they are really shitty. The crazy thing about vinyl is that because it dipped so low through to the 90s that pressing plants all shut down and all like the acetate pressing for vinyl, the things that actually press everything into wax, or it's not really wax anymore, it's acetate. They all shuttered, and so the equipment is old, and there's only a handful of companies that know how to run them. So now the demand is ramping back up that they don't have enough factories to supply, and you can't just go out and buy the machinery anymore because it's so old. No one else is producing them anymore, so there's really starting to be a stranglehold on that. And then 2 months ago, one of the factories that actually produces the record stamps for the factories burnt down, and so now there's even a tighter squeeze. So
oh no.
And think about that. Vinyl dropped off almost the face of the earth in the 90s. Everyone went to cassette tapes and CDs and stopped giving a shit.
Yeah.
And then when interest came back, the entire quote-unquote industry had been gutted because there was no money in it. And now it's almost made to be niche because they can't even manufacture them. If comics go the same way, all the printing presses go to waste, get shut down, get scrapped, and people want comics again in 20 years. There's no one to print them.
I mean, can the same factories that print magazines and stuff could they be fitted to work both? So Erik, as long as there's books and magazines.
Erik has said that the reason you can't just go to bog paper like newsprint paper is that it would be more expensive because the entire industry has shifted to one standard. So trying to get a different paper type is actually cost you more because that paper isn't produced in the quantities needed to get the lower price volume. It would be a similar situation if comics all went away. The machines that staple the spines, because most magazines are glued. Think about that. Most magazines are glued. There are some that are stapled, but most of them are glued. So if like all the machines that staple stuff don't have comics to print, go to waste, what happens when you want to print more.
We're just doing trades.
Yeah. Like I don't know printing presses from Adam, so I can't tell you. I'm just saying. I'm just spitballing here. Similar thing, and like, Raven, you got your book printed. You had to do this whole process with plates, right? They have to actually etch plates to stamp the actual pages.
Yeah, mine was actually offset printed, and that's why it costs so much, is because you're doing metal plates.
And so if comics go away, do magazines do it that way? Do they use the same process? Do the people who do that go away and then not exist anymore? I don't know.
The way it works is that like everybody thinks that printing is like just this dead thing, but what people don't realize, there's still a shit ton of things printed in this world, right? So you will never not have offset printers, and the reason being is because it's kind of like how you could 3D print something, or you could make a model and just do a cast of it. Why do people fuck with the old school way of doing it if you have 3D printers and everything now? It's because the new stuff just isn't there yet. And print is in a weird place because it's like, obviously POD is a superior concept where you only make what you need when you need it, and you never have overhead and you never have waste. Who in this fucking world wouldn't want that to be the standard? But the problem is that because it's in this weird kind of we're not quite there yet place technology-wise, the costs on POD can't compare to if you do offset printing. Like if I did with my book, and I really had to fight, like people just didn't understand it at all, but like I did 2,000 books, and the cost to do 2,000 books, if I had like offset printed, was like $11,000. It's like, okay, well that's a lot, but if I had done those same books POD, it would have been like fucking $40,000, just because the technology's different, the equipment's different.
You use a shit ton more toner because they're all just printed out.
They're literally, it's like a giant version of your HP printer, and it burns through that goddamn toner. Whereas the 4-color print process,
stamp,
cyan, yellow, magenta, black on metal plates pressed into paper 4 times, and you get a full color image off those 4 colors. That is old as shit, and yet it's still more cost effective than the new stuff.
Right.
And so maybe the new stuff will get there, and then the print industry will be saved. And I mean, because if you think about it, comics, the whole reason we have this struggle is because the direct market is non-returnable. So if shop owners buy shit, they're stuck with it.
Right. They pay half the cover price. Sometimes more, because Marvel, in particular Marvel and DC, the more you buy, the better your rate is.
Right.
Yeah. But the idea is you pay about half, and then you get half when you sell it.
Right. So it's kind of weird because it's like you could like say, oh, one day POD will get there. It's just not there now when we need it now. Like we need it there now. Like, comics really could benefit from a POD model that was fucking great now. The technology's just not there. So you still do better to print your comic in bulk and then sell it to Diamond, sell it to the shops, and then the shops sell it to the customer. And that's still a better system than all the technology we have available now.
Because on print on demand, every copy you print is essentially a new copy, so you got to pay more per copy. Whereas with the offset printing, the way they're stamped, you just can do more in volume.
Yeah, once you get that machine to like I did my internship in the printer, I printed my first book. This is not the Dojo book. This is a different book I printed. And he told me I was going to only get like 500. And he told me, he said, why don't you get 1,500 instead? And that's like, I can't afford it. And he was like, you probably can. He said the difference, and I fought so many people, like when I was doing my Kickstarter, they're like, you don't need 2,000, you're being greedy. And I said, what you don't understand is the difference between getting 800 books printed and getting 2,000 books printed is only a couple $100. All the cost is up front just to get that shit started. Once you got that shit started, you can print cheap as much as you want.
And that's why that's why print cost of comics is negligible, because they're even if you're in like the range of like 30,000 copies, it's still only a couple $100. It's only a couple $1,000s per issue.
Right. And so that's the thing, is we would love. I think what's funny too is I've also been trying to like sell comics digitally all my life for 20 years, and I've been watching other people do it. And it's funny, you know how the most successful webcomic artists do it? They're not making it off of directly their comic. They're making it off of other shit like
merch,
books, or merch, and it's funny. It's kind of like, it's that same old thing. As people are like, oh, why not go all digital? It's like, because you would still need to buy something physical for it to be worth people's time.
Right.
Like if every comic in the world was digital, guess what? They still would fucking need you to buy a book or a T-shirt or a toy or some goddamn thing, because you just buying a digital comic ain't enough. It's not. So it sucks. It's a weird situation. We got all these solutions, and yet none of them are good enough. Not really.
And unfortunately, the real solution is we need more people buying comics.
That is the real solution. At the end of the day, if you want to help comics, the fucking thing you can do more than anything is just try to be excited about it publicly, so that people take interest in your interests, because that is how it organically happens.
If more people bought comics, comics would be cheaper, because A, the amount of volume they'd be selling would offset the cost, and B, advertisers would come back.
Yeah.
Because more eyeballs would be on the product.
Plus, if there was more volume, retailers could afford to be more experimental, so people would be reading more different things, you know? So it's tough. I think, like I said, ultimately this is the shittiest thing. And like I said, I can say this because like my fans like me, and I don't have to worry about bending people's noses and stuff. But like a lot of people don't have the freedom to say this. Fucking the fate of comics is in the hand of comic readers. Like you need people, if you want to make the next Walking Dead and have there be like 6 Walking Deads going at once, you know why Walking Dead was fucking successful? Because of Walking Dead fans. It wasn't anything fucking Kirkman did on his own. It wasn't anything magic.
What is Walking Dead? A zombie show. Anyone could have made a zombie show without a license, but because Walking Dead was popular, that was what they went with.
And the only thing creators have to do is be consistent and put something out.
Yeah, that's it.
That resonates with people. But I mean, the thing I feel like with Kirkman is that he was good at keeping it moving and not dropping off.
Until the end of Invincible, then things didn't work so well.
But anyway, I suppose that's that.
I can't even remember how we got into this conversation. Something about one-off comics.
Well, just basically, I was saying Captain America: The End is just a fantastic example of why one-off, like monthlies, have value. So, which tied into the beginning of our podcast where we were talking about. I just had a lot of people coming at me saying, "You know what? If the direct market collapses, who cares? We'll still have bookstores." And I'm like, "You're an idiot."
Yeah.
We will lose so much if the direct market collapses.
Raven, you were telling me the other day you were hoping it would collapse.
No, I do hope that the thing is the nuance there is I want comic stores to exist.
I see. You don't want Diamond to exist, or at least not to be a monopoly.
Diamond to exist. Yeah, I don't want the monopoly to exist. I don't want 2 companies to be the bulk of the sales made. That's not good. And we're living it. We're living that it's not good. So if that direct market, when I say the direct market, the bad thing is the terms are like people use them interchangeably. They refer to comic shops as the direct market. And I get that, but in reality, comic shops are comic shops. And if they had different they used to have different
and don't forget, options. Comic shops predate the direct market. Comic shops were a place you went for back issues. Right. They were a used bookstore.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and some record stores are like that, right? They're like a used record store.
Oh, absolutely. Used record stores are probably more prominent now than... I mean, used record stores are the ones that started the vinyl thing. Most you'd get 80% used records, and they would have 20% maybe new releases. And then the big box stores started seeing vinyl resurge, and now they're stocking it. But it's all driven by the secondhand record store with the small, like comic shops, small mom and pop, guys that are super into records and music and driving that.
Fans.
But it's very much like comics.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, if comic fans want to make new want things to be better for comics, they got to get out there. They got to be fucking excited. because I don't think these retailers know how to do it. I hate to say it. I love comic shops. I love comic shop owners. They've had a lot of time to be in this trouble, and I don't think they know how to do it. And I think it's going to take excited fans getting other people excited, and before you know it, it's kind of like how there was that point in time where everybody was a Game of Thrones fan.
Oh yeah, for 4 seasons, and then we stopped.
I get it. It's like it was a TV show, but what got people into it was people talking openly about being excited about it. So,
and people were talking about getting those books adapted by HBO for like a decade before it happened too. It was like a dream come true when that got announced.
Sure.
It was like Walking Dead too, though. I mean, I've been reading the comics for 10 years before everyone in my office started talking about it on TV, and it was like, there's comics, and I know how this ends because I read this. And they're like, how do you know this? And it's like, because I've been reading it for 10 years before you even...
It's too underground. You probably haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Anyway, we got way in the weeds. Captain America, The End, fantastic.
Absolutely.
Hey.
Good issue.
I got a good end of the episode question.
Okay.
What's up?
If you guys were alive in the Captain America Holocaust, like the fucking like Red Skull-Holocaust, like fucking skulls everywhere, would you do it with one of the Red Skull people?
I'm pretty sure I would be a Red Skull person, so...
So yes?
Yeah, probably.
You'd hop in the stew pot.
I'd be part of the hive mind, so the good news is I wouldn't have to think about it.
Do you think the skull's boned?
I
don't think so.
know, man.
No? What about you?
They were probably too obsessed with killing Captain America. That the boning would probably come after.
What about you, Craig?
Dude, I don't think they did. I think they only had one objective.
No,
but
I'm saying, would you?
It made me. Would I what?
Would you bone a Red Skull?
If I didn't know any better, but I have a feeling as long as I put a bag over the head or something.
Put a bag over your own head.
In real life, looking at that would be a little freaky. But I probably would, just because.
Yeah. You're going to get whiskey dick maybe the first few times, but eventually, after not seeing any normal humans, you're gonna.
I love how it always comes down to that.
I just figured that'd be a good the end to our the end discussion.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening.
You can always leave us a comment or question at SavageFINcast.com or at our email at SavageFINcast@gmail.com.
Let us know what you thought about the issue. Leave us a comment on the email or on our webpage or on the Savage Dragon Erik Larsen fan page on Facebook. But we like to hear what you guys thought about the issue or thought about our points.
Absolutely.
So until next time, have a good one.
Take it easy. Thanks for listening.